Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is the Valley's News Talk and Podcasts. Talk Central Phoenix, a Central City radio station.
Well, good evening and welcome in. It's Jeff Rich live from Phoenix. I am joined this evening by my man from the same neck of the woods back in Northeast Ohio as myself. It's James Out West from the James Out West Show on KDUS on what, Sunday nights?
Monday nights, 7 and 8, yep.
So you capture the whole weekend. It's a football theme show?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, because that's what's going on right now, but mostly gambling in general. Just kind of like gambling, sports betting, things like that. We're not very good at it, but...
That's going to take over the scene.
Absolutely.
I've been told by everybody that's worked in this business, you want to get some traction as far as engagement. Talk about wrestling and fantasy football, which is
100%
gambling.
Yep, 100%.
And I'm not much into it.
Really?
I'm just.
You're such a purist, Jeff.
I try to stay above board. And, you know, for the first time, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, because I was talking to Julian here on the other side of the glass here at CentralCityRadio.com about, you know, what are our ethics? You know, what's the line that we have to toe? And he says, you know, it doesn't have to be Andrew Dice. It should not be Andrew Dice Clay.
Absolutely.
You know, you don't drop them for the sake of dropping them, but when used effectively, they carry a little bit more weight than
sure.
If you just F this and F that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, well, that's what's crazy, too, is because it's like being on, like, the radio, you know, I would think that I'd worry about that, about, like, language and things of that nature, but, like, what's nice about that is it's like when that light goes on or when you know it's, like, instantly, oh, I'm back in school, need to behave. Watching the way that we do things is very interesting. I'm excited, though. I'm very excited for the season. I'm excited about your Coyotes maybe coming to my neck of the woods, East Valley, getting away from the West. I mean, I think that was a poor decision on everybody's behalf. They should have put the Cardinals in the East Valley. They should have put them off the 10. I mean, when you have to go all the way out to the stadium, to the, you know, the spaceship in the sky out in the desert, I only go to one game every couple of years, and a lot of it's a factor of how far it is to go out there, and nobody really wants to go out there. Nothing against anybody in the West Valley, don't get me wrong.
There's that disclaimer all.
But you know what I'm saying? But it's like I prefer, the East Valley and things like that. So the Coyotes will be something that, even though I'm not a huge hockey fanatic growing up in Ohio, we didn't have hockey.
We did to an extent. My family's from Cleveland Heights, where hockey was just huge. High school hockey was probably bigger than certainly bigger than the Indians and the Cavaliers who played down in Richfield for a while. Like the people didn't like sports. They understood the ambiance of going to the hockey game and getting that in-person atmosphere. Like we were talking about a little bit off the air here about the Diamondbacks. We said we won't watch the Diamondbacks, and you know, with the present state that they're in, the people that are paid to cover them are about the only ones that are watching them.
Absolutely.
But so hockey was big in Northeast Ohio. I was going to tell you about the whole thing with the East Valley, West Valley. You know, I didn't wear my robe tonight, but you are preaching to the choir.
Okay.
I need hockey to not be that far west. I used to live at Central and Northern.
Okay.
I used to live where it actually wasn't that bad of a commute.
Sure.
In the middle of the week on a Tuesday night for 6:40 puck drop. You know, if you live inside the loop, you've got a realistic chance of working a 9 to 5 and making it out there for the start of the game, getting parked and getting into the arena. And that's some things at Glendale, because they have the real estate that they've always had going for it. But it seems like even when you go out for a Cardinals game or the Fiesta Bowl, that they have all these auxiliary parking lots. Like, you built this thing in the middle of the desert and you still have to park. You know,
I have to park and take a shuttle to get over, or to take an Uber or a Lyft to get over to the game. It's ridiculous where they put it. I miss when the Phoenix Coyotes played in downtown. I miss when they were right in the center of everything. You know, they shared an arena. It was a electric atmosphere. You had the boys banging in the glass. It was a beautiful time. I can't tell you the last time I went to a Coyotes game, and I think it has everything to do with the fact that it's all the way out there. Because hockey games you have to be a hockey fan to watch it on TV. You have to be a hockey fan to watch it on TV. But you can be a casual hockey fan and go to the game and enjoy it and actually be involved in the game. There's just something about that cool air, the ice, the way it sounds, the moving, all of that. It being so far away, it's not going to draw me, the ultimate casual fan, to go to a game.
Now, living in the 330, I was living in Brimfield, which is right by Kent State University. I learned names of hockey players on the Red Wings and on the Penguins, so that I was familiar enough to know who was who when I played the video game.
NHL 94, yeah.
I'm not going even that far back. I'm talking about the PlayStation circa 2000, and the Red Wings and the Avalanche were, the best teams, and I hated the red sweaters. So even when I played at home with the Red Wings, I had to wear the whites. But, I didn't know anybody but Yzerman and Fedorov at the time, probably the
two biggest, yeah, absolutely.
So I completely understand being that casual hockey fan. So I'm not sure how far back your time with the Valley goes, but
96.
Okay, so I moved out here 6 weeks before the Diamondbacks won the World Series in 01.
Oh, wow.
So I just hit 20 years.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
20 years service.
Yeah, you know what? It kind of feels like it.
But these summers.
But we've seen it change. I mean, the summers stay constant, but we've seen so much change. The development of the East Valley. I mean, I remember coming out here. It was probably 96, and my aunt lived in Chandler at the time, and she lived at like Arizona and Chandler Boulevard.
Oh yeah, that's
pavement ended
right out where I'm at. Yeah, absolutely.
So
a lot of farmland, a lot of no freeways going out that way. It just stopped and ended, and what a boom it's had in the last 20.
Well, that's how we got down to the southern part of the state. Was we took 87 all the way down to Coolidge from.
Oh wow!
We're talking Arizona Avenue, Country Club Drive. We took that surface street. It probably took us 4.5 hours to get to Tombstone.
That sounds right.
But it's just my reminder. In fact, it was in April of '96 because it was when they announced that the Jets were moving to Arizona and they were going to be the Coyotes. So I happened to be part of that history. Coincidentally, I was actually up in the Bay Area when they broke ground on the Santa Clara Stadium for the 49ers back in 2020. We were up there to see the Indians and the Athletics.
Okay.
They play over in Oakland, and we got a bonus game because the Giants were at home, on the tail end of a homestand. So I like living out west.
Me too.
I like taking advantage of the field trips to Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
My best friend from Cleveland lives in San Diego.
Oh, beautiful. 5.5 hour drive. You're good to go.
In Los Angeles, we did a little bit of 12-hour commutes to Denver, but that got old really quick.
Yeah, that's a long drive.
You could fly there for like 130 grand.
It's very cheap. It's very cheap.
Take Frontier.
Which I am not. I cannot take Frontier, Spirit. I'm not a big flyer to begin with. Like, I'm not scared of heights. I don't like going to airports. Nobody's happy about being in an airport anymore. Everybody's very angst. There's a lot of tension. Who knows what is TSA going to do their job, or are they going to harass me or whatever? And nobody. And then we got to get on. And there's all these restrictions. Which, if that's what you have to do to fly, I'm okay with that. But I don't care for it. So it's like the shorter the flight, the better. But then I'm like, well, I'll just drive then. Like you said, LA. It's $100 round trip right now. Yeah, but I'll drive the 6 hours. Like, I like having my car. I like having my freedom.
Okay, so you're coming in from the East Valley. So you're talking about half hour, 45 minutes to get to Sky Harbor, 25 minutes if you're quick with the parking, hopping on the SkyTrain, or if you park in the short-term parking, which is, hey, if you got that kind of money.
Yeah, no kidding. $27 a day. Whew.
I remember when it was $16 a day. It's more than that. We paid $44 to park in the economy.
Oh my gosh,
for 4 days. So it's Sky Harbor. Much like the casinos and hotels up there in Southern Nevada, they stay in business because they know how to make money.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why they have the big chandeliers.
Yep, exactly. I want to ask what I'm on a complete tangent here, but I want to ask what your lowest common denominator with an airline is.
Oh boy, I would guess. I mean, probably. So I'll fly Allegiant for sure, and that's probably the bottom rung. And I like Allegiant a lot.
And do they still fly out of Mesa?
Yeah, now they fly out of Phoenix as well now too. So they got a terminal, or they got a gate. I think they got 2 gates. They'll fly to Phoenix, or from Phoenix to Pittsburgh, and from Phoenix to like Minneapolis, and then from Phoenix to like Provo. Now you can still do everything else out of Mesa Gateway, which I love. Like, they've bought a bunch of brand new planes. They're a little bit more of a step up in my regard. Their prices are not that bad. Like, if you want to go regionally, you want to go see Montana, you want to go do the Yellowstone thing, you want to go to do any of that type of stuff. Like, for us being northeastern Ohio people, if you want to go back home, I mean, Pittsburgh's what, an hour and a half drive from Cleveland ish. So you could fly to Pittsburgh for $50 and rent a car, versus flying into Cleveland, having to stop in Charlotte, or having to stop in Chicago, or having to stop in, Denver for 2 hours, and then all of that to make that transition. I just rather.
I'm just going to say fuck United Airlines.
Hey, I'm okay with that too. Like, I understand it.
I mean, you understand the whole Continental thing, how it took, not just jobs away from Cleveland, but it took the convenience of travel away from Cleveland. Even if you had to connect in Pittsburgh, because that Pittsburgh always seemed to be a hub for Continental. And I lived in Athens, Georgia, so I didn't have to go to Atlanta to fly back to Cleveland when I was living over there. So I really despise United. Plus, their service sucks.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Their service sucks.
Yeah. Their service sucks.
Unforgiving. And if you want to spend hours on a hot tarmac at O'Hare, I highly recommend United Airlines. Otherwise, I'm not going to lie. We got on that big Greyhound in the sky. We got on that Spirit flight to...
oh, my God. God bless you. I can't believe you went and got on that Spirit fly to the sky. Like, seriously, like T-Rex sang.
We used to we used to be very quiet about our Mesa Gateway experience because we didn't want the secret to get out.
Oh, because it's great.
We used to fly into Rockford.
Okay,
Rockford and rent a car because my wife's from the northwest suburbs of Illinois. So why go all the way to Chicago just to have to drive back up to Schaumburg, Arlington Heights?
Oh, really? Peoria area out that way.
Well, Peoria is, I think, on the other in another part of the state.
Okay.
I'm not very familiar.
You said
with
northwest?
Northwest of Chicago, yeah.
Oh, northwest of Chicago. Okay, I was like, oh, the state. Yeah, I think that's Peoria, Schaumburg. That makes sense. Yeah, I love Mesa Gateway. I love it. And they have a little courtyard with a little bar and a little restaurant that if you don't know it's there, you would never know it's there because it's like tucked in the back. I had a wonderful experience having to fly. I had to do a round trip, go get my kids from Minnesota. I flew overnight to St. Cloud, got off the plane to get them at security, get back on the plane, and go back. Same plane. Same seats, just do the turnaround. And it was probably the best experience I've had having to go through an airport and do all those things. So I love it out there, and I'm about 5 miles from there. The flight path is whoosh, right over my house.
We're talking to James out west. It's Jeff Rich live from Phoenix on CentralCityRadio.com. Keep the conversation going about airports. You did mention TSA, and I'm going to tell you, flying during this whole, I won't even refer to it as the pandemic. I'm going to refer to it as the people not willing to work. The labor shortages, which are plaguing fast food restaurants and casual dining and TSA. And everybody's like, well, you got to get to the airport 2 hours early. I'll tell you what, the fewer TSA agents that we have, the better.
Agreed.
Less is better in this case because
Agreed.
They don't have to find time to scrutinize. They don't have to meet metrics. They just have to get people through the damn gate.
Yep.
Without box cutters. Or shoe bombs.
Which is not a funny story, but funny in the sense that, like, I remember the first time I went to go get a friend from Sky Harbor Airport. We just moved out here, and I just got off work at Bash's. Shout out Bash's Groceries. And I had my outfit on, my little apron and all that, and in my pocket was a box cutter. Didn't even think about it. Like, and that was back when they let you go through security. So, like, as I got security, they were like, "Excuse me, sir," and I was like, "What?" They're like, "You have a box cutter." I was like, "Oh, I forgot." Well, you can see I still have my name tag on. So yeah, sorry about that. They took my box cutter. And I was like, "Hey, when I come back through, can I get my box cutter back? Like, I need that tomorrow for work." And it's funny you bring up box cutter because it's like, oh yeah, you can't do that anymore. Back when I was a kid, or when you were a kid pre 9/11, you could travel with a pocket knife. You can travel with a lighter. Now they want to arrest you and ask you 18 questions if you got a lighter on you. It's very interesting times, and you're right. The least amount of TSA, the better.
I moved out here 5 days after 9/11, so I booked my flight pre 9/11. I got to the airport like 6 a.m. that Sunday morning. And, 9/11 was a Tuesday. That was a Sunday, and I got there super early. I remember going to Burger King right by Cheers at the at Hopkins
Cheers,
Airport back then. And I only remember Cheers because on my way to Marine Corps boot camp, we stopped there for our last meal before we had to.
Fantastic. By the way, thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. It's not something that I gloat about.
No. But we know, and that is something that absolutely that should be acknowledged to all of those
and to all
that
of
have,
those
yes.
I do a nightly radio show that goes out over AFN.
So, yeah. Foul territory, right?
Yeah, and I get to thank them every night. On the verge of a rebrand, just like the show was
okay,
just recently
fantastic.
Rebranded. So we're gonna call that one Sports Overnight America from Phoenix. So
okay.
I'm really trying to show some
growth
to the city that I've lived in for 20 years.
Hey, I hear you.
But we got so sidetracked from the Yotes. But in the wake of that 9/11, we had the LaGuardia crash. And that kind of put the kibosh on the Cardinals going from Sun Devil Stadium just to where the Cubs facility is now. Ironically, there was no problem building a Cubs spring training facility.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Where they couldn't build a Cardinal stadium because of the flight path.
Of course not. course not. It's all about money. Who wants to pay it? Who wants to get the right people to say, yeah, sure.
And I got here after the whole Los Arcos deal fell apart. Scottsdale Road and McDowell, it would have been, you would have either still had that auto mile, or it'd be the entertainment district that you have a few blocks up in Old Town and, across Tempe Town Lake over.
But I will say, I like the Tempe Town Lake and Old Town better than it being on Scottsdale and McDowell. Like, I know that place fell apart and it was such a, lack of a better term, shit show, but I'm glad it kind of ended up the way it did, in the sense of, like, Tempe Town Lake is beautiful. The way they finally have built it up, they've kept Mill.
As it's filled with water.
Yeah, as long as it's filled with water. They've kept Mill Avenue mostly like Mill Avenue for the last 25 years. Like, there's a few things that have changed, but there's a couple of places that still exist that have always been there, which is nice. The way it looks at night is beautiful. I'm not a big Old Town person because I'm an old curmudgeon, old fuck. That's an old man. I don't do that. I don't do those things. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock. But it's beautiful when you get to go down there and actually see what everything is, and the way that the architecture is, and it's very pretty. It's very. I understand why people come here from back east and just fall in love with the way it looks. Like, we have no grass unless you're on a golf course. It's like they're taken in by what we consider to be the desert. They're like, we're like, whatever, I'm over it. They come here and they're like, they're wanting to move instantly. And I think that just goes back to people want what they don't have. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the Coyotes, the Phoenix area wanted a hockey team so bad. Then we got them. They were good for a while, and then nobody gave a shit because they moved too far out. And they were ran poorly. And then we're going to bring more people in, and then they're going to run it piss poorly too. And then we're going to bring more people in. People get over quick here in Arizona because there's a lot to do here. You're outside all the time. Oh, I can just hang out in my pool and not care about this shitty team, you know what I'm saying? That's not very good, and that I can catch on replay and hear about what's going on.
Let me make the point about San Diego. San Diego has 0 major professional sports championships.
That's incredible.
Never. And they've had the Clippers. They've had the Chargers.
Yep.
They still have the Padres.
Which, that gives them a chance.
That does. And they don't, what a disappointing season for the Padres, by the way.
I mean, to be where they were at, just 2 months ago? Was it about 2 months ago?
Oh, yeah.
They were right in the thick of it. They might have been, and forgive me, but they might have been in the lead or right there in the lead, and to falling off, they're like, 15, 18 games? I mean, it's really bad. It's incredible. I feel so bad for them, because to have a perpetual loser, yes, we'll say it, a perpetual loser in the San Diego Padres. They've had great players, have never had a great team, have never won, like you just stated. To have this team that they have now with all this young talent, and to be going in the right direction, and to challenge the evil empire of the West Coast and the Dodgers, and to have the Giants come out of nowhere and have the season they're having, to have that fall on them is just it's heartbreaking. But we're Indians fans; we're used to heartbreak.
I certainly agree with that. And my buddy moved. I mentioned my best friend lives in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
He moved out there July of '06. And the Major League Baseball had never scheduled, after 2004, they never put the Indians at Petco Park. They finally scheduled it in 2020. It was like it was the third week of June in 2020, and MLB gets shut down on March 12th, and they don't come out there. And they're going there next year, but they didn't make up for it this year, so he never got to see the Cleveland Indians play.
Oh, and now when they see them next time, they'll be the Guardians. Which, okay,
say it and do it. Work through it with me.
If you're going to change the name, which I don't agree with, but okay, we're making the change. Of what they offered, I liked the Guardians the best. Then they rolled out that Mickey Mouse ass logo. It is terrible. And I know if you have to point out all the things that represent it because nobody gets it, then you need to redo design.
Like the ransom letter cap.
Yeah, it's terrible. I'm like, those are another. I mean, listen, not every idea is a good idea. Doesn't mean we need to run with it. Somebody in marketing got way too in front of their skis and got the right person to say yes. There's no way that should be the logo. Like, you can make the Guardians very menacing and very cool looking, though the Guardians of Traffic, if you're not familiar with Cleveland and the bridge and everything that goes on there, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. It's stunning. It really, truly is. And to have that, you could integrate that. Nope, we went with the baseball with wings.
311 actually incorporated their one of the Guardians into their concert poster for the 21st of September.
It's beautiful. Which is today. Hey, right on. Enjoy the concert. 311. Be a good time.
Right. Have you seen them?
I've never seen them live.
I saw them at Mesa Amphitheater around 2005. Under Oath opened.
Oh my goodness!
It's one of the few concerts I've been
Mesa Amphitheater, bro. You're taking it way back. I think I saw a POD there.
Okay. Same time era. You know, that makes me think of my early PlayStation 2 era Madden.
Yes, 100%.
Because this is a true story. So I had my company. I got moved out here by the job. So my company's moving all my stuff from Wadsworth, Ohio, to Scottsdale, and I'm just bored to tears. I don't have any friends that I don't work with. So I'm walking around Best Buy at the pavilions, and I just find myself playing Madden on the PS2, and I decide that, okay, you know what? I'm going to buy a PS2. And, I wait for my TV for a day, and it doesn't, and then, it's going to be like another 4 days. So I go back to Target at Pavilions, and I'm like, I need a TV. And I was like, trying to be stingy. I just moved here. I had other expenses. And then I decided not to be stingy. I bought like a $500 flat, flat panel Trinitron. There were still fatback TVs back
Absolutely.
then. I bought a flat panel Trinitron because I was determined that I'm going to return this thing as soon as my stuff. So
it was a loaner. It was a loaner.
I borrowed the TV from Target.
It was a loaner.
We talk about me being above board.
It's okay.
I had some shit. Ohio Jeff had some shady in him.
Hey, that's just surviving. Okay, look, no harm, no foul. Big corporation, not like you bought it at Al's TV Repair and Supply, which he's going to eat that when you bring it back.
That's why he's not business.
Exactly. Yeah. Well. Very true. It's cheaper to buy a new TV than to fix one, just like with a lot of things in life these days.
I did learn that. We bought a $800 plasma screen TV with our wedding money in 2007. Okay. And I think I called about 3 or 4 years ago, and I told him, he's like, well, how much you pay for the TV? I was like, $800, but back in 2007. He's like, okay. He's like, how much are 42-inch TVs? So it's like, I don't know, you can find them for like $250.
Yeah, cheap.
It's like, well, diagnostics is going to be $150. If I have to replace a single part on it, it's going to be more expensive than new TV. So TV repair shops don't want to fix flat screens.
No, and so how do they even stay in business?
They find other ways.
That's wild to me. Like, how could you even stay in business? Because it costs more to fix it than to replace it.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Some go by the wayside. Typewriter manufacturing, repair, that kind of thing. Blacksmiths, cobblers.
Yeah, sure.
I worked for FedEx during the day.
Okay.
And I came in at a time that was very interesting because FedEx was forever prior to them acquiring FedEx Ground. FedEx was always the overnight letter, and you have email, so I can instantly send this letter across the country. What do I need you for? Anyway?
Right.
So they had to go say, we're going to go compete with UPS. We're going to get into the big box market.
Yeah.
So UPS controlled that market, as a railroad for 150 years, 100 plus years at the time. And FedEx says, we're going to have to compete in this way. And you've seen them, acquire Kinko's and do various things. And now they have the last leg of the mail service, which competes with all of their competitors. So, you adapt and overcome.
Absolutely. Or you go away.
Or you go away and you try to do something else. Everybody, people have switched industries late in life. You see all these commercials about, Martha Stewart didn't get her first break until she was 40 plus.
Mm-hmm.
So, you hang on. And that's a good way to transition into talking about the Arizona Cardinals. If you were a fan of this team when they got here in '88 from St. Louis, and it was, the Bidwell family was garbage in Chicago. They were garbage in St. Louis, and they were garbage up until about 16, 17 years ago. Once the city decided that, or the community decided that they were going to build them a new stadium and they weren't going to be co-tenants at ASU anymore.
Right.
They seemed to turn a little bit of a corner. Like
they did. They were the second. They were the guest at the Sun Devil Stadium. I mean, usually your NFL team is what runs things.
They were the Clippers.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
They were the LA Clippers, who was the other team in LA, and the Arizona Cardinals or the Phoenix Cardinals. They were the other team in Phoenix, and we didn't have a co-tenant in Phoenix.
Right. Yeah.
That's how bad it was. They had to draft Jake. I think drafting Jake Plummer, gave that ASU tie-in. So you said, okay, ASU Cowboys fans, you've got to root for your guy here.
Yep, and we're going to sell tickets. And you know what? It was a good pick, though, because he was a very good quarterback. I mean, what they put around him maybe wasn't, the best that they could have, obviously. But the fact that, he played for as long as he did, he still, got all his fallacies because of how many hits he took playing for the Cardinals.
Definitely.
It gave those people a base. And then, of course, when they, Pat Tillman and kind of given those youngsters an ability to grow, now we have people that have moved here that maybe didn't live here, that have kids that grew up with only having the Cardinals. So there's creating lifelong fans that their first memories of Cardinals is maybe McCown. Maybe it was Kurt Warner. Maybe it was, Granny, I must have called him Granny Dean. Denny Green. Crown the ass, you crown him. I think we have a lot of these kids now that are young adults that grew up at a time when the Cardinals were good. So they've only known, the Cardinals to be a decent football or a good football team, so they don't have any of that heartache, which is nice to see because there is a love for the Cardinals in this state. You can feel it, especially when they're towards the playoffs or that run with Kurt Warner. You could taste it. You could feel the electricity, which reminded me of Cleveland. Downtown, the city's buzzing when the Browns are good or when the Indians are in the playoffs. They're buzzing. So when you get that feeling here, it's wow, it really took hold. And I'm very proud to be, I guess, a Phoenician in that regard, because they took a team that had no business. They're like, whatever. They stink, whatever. We can't get it right. They finally got it right. Some people still don't like the organization. Some people still don't like the owners, but they're not trying to lose on purpose. They don't want to be the laughingstock of the league unless you're the Brown family in Cincinnati, because they don't just give a shit. And they don't even have an indoor practice facility for their guys, for God's sakes.
They're a joke. I wish, I wish that Paul Brown and Art Modell didn't have their falling out.
Oh my gosh!
And we wouldn't have a second team in the state of Ohio that has very similar colors. When
it was a slap in the face.
When people come up to me and they say, "Well, at least the Bengals won," it is not the same thing. It's 5 hours away. It's like saying that you should be engaged in LA because you live 5 hours away from the LA teams here in Phoenix.
Cincinnati is the polar opposite of Cleveland. We don't even consider it to be Ohio. It's called Kentucky for a reason, and the people of Louisville hate it. They hate it because they're they don't want to claim that garbage either. Yeah, I said it, garbage. I can't stand anything about Cincinnati. I don't like Skyline Chili. I don't like the Reds. I don't like... Now, here's the one thing I do like. I like Pete Rose. I understand he did what he did, but the player himself, separate art from artist, Charlie Hustle, incredible baseball player. I don't think he ever bet on them to lose. I think he was the ultimate competitor. What he did was wrong, but the player himself, put the asterisk, whatever, but the player himself at the time is one of the best players of all time.
And he should have a spot in Cooperstown.
Yes, with an asterisk. He cheated. He bet on baseball while being a manager and possibly while being a player, depending on who you want to listen to. But you can't take away from what he did.
I was only going to add that I consider the Reds baseball royalty, just because of their history.
Yeah, sure.
They should always host the first game of the season. Opening day should be in Cincinnati on Sunday night. I don't really care who they play.
Sure.
I think they should play one of their traditional rivals, the Cardinals, the Cubs, perhaps the Indians.
Sure, yeah, a little interleague game one would be nice.
Do you like interleague play?
I do. 'Cause I'm not a traditionalist with baseball. I'm definitely not. I enjoyed the steroid era. They knew they were doing it, and then to go back and try to slap wrists and slap hands and make Sammy Sosa act like he can't speak English and all of those things that happened. You guys knew it was going on. You wanted it to happen. You let it slide, and then after it became a big deal, well, now we're going to get involved and we stay in the black eye. No, it was must-see TV. When the news was cutting into Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune to show you an at-bat of Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire, it was everybody dropped what they were doing, even if you weren't a baseball fan. It gave people the love of baseball again because, frankly, nobody gave a shit.
Fortunately, McGwire did hit 62 against the Cubs. So the game was on WGN. And I was stationed in Athens, Georgia. I was working a night shift, and our supervisor, Sergeant Prescuso, shout out Scoos if you're watching. He's a big baseball guy. He's a big Cardinals fan. He's from Salem, Illinois. He was a big Cardinals fan, so he wanted to see it himself. And he told us to secure the chow until the Cardinals-Cubs game was over. It's on WGN. Go watch it if you want.
That's awesome.
And we watched McGwire hit the home run off Traskell, and then we went back to work, and he was so excited he just sent us back home.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, but I do remember this. Are you invested in this season at all? Void of any dog in the fight.
So, no, I'm not. If it wasn't just for, again, with the betting kind of becoming new here, doing these first 5-inning bets, because basically you're betting on starters. So if you kind of know a little bit, you can do decent. But no, when our beloved General Tito, Terry Francona, left the team with illness. Shout out Tito. I know he's going to be back next year. Hopefully he's healthy and all those things. I hate when people say, it's time for change. Baseball is a marathon. We might have had our chance. We may never have that chance again in our general lifetime, in the sense of how good we were and how close we were in 2016. I think that window closed. My Uncle Zabrowski said, hey, I think that window closed. He always hated on Francisco Lindor. And when he left, he said, watch what's going to happen. He's a bum. He needs Jose. And he was kind of right for the most part. Like, I think Frankie got too much of being Frankie, of being Francisco. Big fish in a small pond. Now he's not such a big fish in a very large lake. He's not that guy. He just isn't. I'm sorry. And that stinks because he had something special in Cleveland where you could have...
I thought he embodied the organization.
He did, 100%.
He represented everything that they wanted to be as, their best overall player. And then he kind of got upstaged by the guy that came out of nowhere in Jose Ramirez over there at
absolutely.
Base, who could play any one of those middle infield. Could play anywhere.
He'd be an all-star at any of those positions. Yeah. Absolutely.
You wouldn't want that little man over at first base, but
no. Yeah, there you go. What's funny is he just won AL Player of the Week. Jose Ramirez. I mean, he's killed what he had. He had 3 home runs, 10 RBIs. He was batting like 500 for the week. I mean, and they played like 4 or 5 games this week. So,
and MVP on a shitty team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look what they did to the Yankees. You go into New York. It's the last time you're going to play them as the Cleveland Indians, and you want to talk about a history between the two of those teams, just because of the fact that George Steinbrenner wanted to buy the Indians, and they wouldn't. Something went wrong. Whatever. Ended up buying the Yankees.
He was just going to stick to shipbuilding.
Yeah. That's typical Cleveland luck. What did the Yankees do after he bought them? Perennial winners because he would spend the money.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been, who's to say, but that could have been Cleveland. The playoff series in the 90s against them. Even recently going in and having Kluber go in and not get it done. All of those things. And then he pitched
Anakin DeVader.
Yeah, and then he dominated us twice this year, I think. But the history that they have to know that that's the last time they're going to play the Indians and to go in there and get the 2 out of 3 and to beat them thoroughly 2 games in a row was very nice to see, because you're not going to see that marquee matchup. We're not going to see, and I'm sure on TV they didn't throw Chief Wahoo up. They probably threw the Block C, which I don't mind. I don't mind the Block C. It's in my car. I don't mind the Block C. I like Wahoo, always have. I understand with the times, that's what they want to do, but guess what? Nobody I know that's an Indians fan is going to buy Guardian shit. I'm not going to buy a Guardians hat. Now, if you want to give me a cool hat with just the face of the Guardian from the bridge, I can get down with that.
Well, there's no gear out. They're not,
and there shouldn't be
cemented into these logos. They photoshopped existing. They didn't even have a runway shoot with. They didn't have to have Jose Ramirez and Shane Bieber do it. They could have had. They could have had any guy that was 6'2" model these uniforms. So they didn't need a player to do it because it was in season, and all they did was they photoshopped the Guardian. Yep, photos.
It's unbelievable. And then to find out that they didn't secure the rights to Cleveland Guardians, it's a roller derby team. It's not going to hold up. They're going to sell out, which they should, and you're going to give into that. But the fact it's like you didn't even like.
The smartest organization.
Nobody reached out and was like, wait a minute, we didn't do a simple domain search. We didn't find out that this isn't something that's been around for 10 years. Like, come on, man. You guys got to be better than that. And that's leads to the bigger problem. If that's slipping through the cracks, what else is going on in that organization?
All right. So I'm sold on the fact with the Indians for the time being. I am sold on the fact that they are... What do I want to say here? I think that they have a plan. They have a plan. I think they got exposed on the whole logo thing. I think that it leaked. Zach Meisel was going to publish it on the Athletic. He changed his Twitter handle to Guardians Beat Reporter the day before. So and the Athletic's a good publication.
Absolutely.
And the guy here in town, Zach Buchanan, who writes for the Diamondbacks, if you want to know what happened, if you want to know why it happened, which is the whole reason that we have the media there,
right?
Zach's your man. Arizona Diamondbacks coverage on the Athletic. He ain't paying me to say this shit.
Right, of course, but it's where you like to read. You get his information be valuable. A lot of people, talking heads, probably us included at times, they run their mouths, don't really know what the hell they're saying.
Well, the shit that we want to hear about the talking heads on the networks,
they don't talking about it.
They don't talk about us. They don't talk about Phoenix. They talk about Phoenix through allegation during the NBA Finals. It was just like Cleveland for 4 years from 15 to 18.
Absolutely. That's absolutely correct.
And I thought when Max Kellerman was initially selling Around the Horn, he's like, we're going to talk to people from your neighborhood. So I thought that we're going to see Bud Shaw. We weren't going to see the people that would have handpicked from Cleveland, but we've seen like the Bud Shaws and the Aaron Goldhammers, representing Cleveland. Somebody that's actually boots on the ground, whether we like how they represent
who they are, not absolutely.
And they're not represented. They don't. They send somebody to Cleveland. They'll send a mercenary like Jeremy Fowler into Cleveland, or Jake Trotter.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Make sure that your ESPN news does not have a Cleveland turn to it at all.
Yeah, and I don't understand why that is. If it's just a biased because it's Cleveland, quote unquote, versus.
Well, we don't get anything more than Michael Wilbon in front of the green screen in front of Camelback Mountain here.
Right, yeah, and the Phoenix thing too. It's like this is when there's a ton of athletes that end up retiring here because they come out here to play a game. They're like, holy shit, Phoenix is awesome. I've heard that. It's why a lot of the elite athletes retire here, have homes here. It's because you can do everything year round. You've got all of the things that you want to go to, like you said. You got Vegas, you got LA, you got San Diego, you got everything right here within a couple-hour flight or a couple-hour drive, whatever it might be. You got snow up north. You can do whatever it is. People fall in love with that.
No hurricanes, no tornadoes.
Thank you. We get sandstorms,
which is rough for a pool owner.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a bunch of stuff in my pool, but other than that, and umbrella tossed and things of that nature.
We gotta pick up the plastic chairs.
Yeah.
We're gonna rebuild here.
Yeah, I don't understand why there isn't more love for the Phoenix area, considering what it has to offer.
I just kind of think it's been a pretty well kept secret. But you've got the red cursive plates coming over from the west, and then you've got the black block letters coming in from the other side of New Mexico.
Yeah,
and they're buying up all the houses.
Yes, they are.
I hope that everybody out there is kind of settle in their spot right now, because real estate, whether you want to rent or buy, it's just fucking impossible here because of the because cost of living is so much different in California and Texas than it is here. And then we go back to Cleveland. You pull out a 20 to buy a round of beer. They give you a 10.
You get change back. Yeah. It's like, boys, I got it tonight. It's incredible. We were just in Columbus for a wedding, and we went down the street. We stayed on High Street in Columbus, and it was beautiful. Great area, we thought, till there was gunshots in the night, but whatever, here nor there. We went down to this bar called the Eagle, and I went in, ordered some maple glazed bacon. It was amazing, and some hush puppies. And I wanted some bourbon. I was like, I see you got, I was like, Woodford. She was like, yeah, but so much. She goes, why don't you get the special tonight? I was like, what is it? She's like, Eagle Rare doubles for $4. I was like, you can't get a single for $12 in Phoenix. Right. So I was like, yeah, I'll take two of those real quick. Yeah, thank you. I was blown away by that, and I was like, oh, I forgot. Stuff here is cheap when it comes to stuff like that. Like, our bill with food was like $24. I was like, we're not used to that. I forget that it's like that. And then you go here, you go to LA, or you go to Vegas, God forbid, and it's just, you're paying $18 for a cheeseburger.
I grew up on Mark's prices.
MARC, baby.
That was one of my first jobs.
Oh, I love Mark's.
And for those of you who don't know, it's if you're getting familiar with Aldi, it's like Aldi with everything that you can find at Target, except that it's less than Amazon prices.
Yeah. It's like a poor man's Big Lots.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
It's officially a drugstore, but the one I worked at on Lorraine Road in Cleveland.
The only drugs that were being sold were outside the store.
Oh, yeah.
That's 100%.
So here's our transition. So drugs used to be spoken of like a bad thing. Now they're completely legal in Oregon. They're legal in like 16, 19 states. The hippie lettuce is legal
absolutely,
including here.
Yep.
And we haven't had anybody drive off I-10 because they ate too many edibles.
Well, I think if people eat too many edibles, they're not getting in a car.
Right.
They're not going to get behind a wheel. They're not going to go do anything or go anywhere. They're not moving. No, they're not moving. They're going to have a complete panic attack because they don't know what's going on because they've never dealt with something like that before. But they're not getting in a car and driving around.
Where people call like a police officer, his wife ate a brownie.
Yes.
And called 911 because they thought they were going to die.
Yes, it's like no, it's just give it some time. You'll be okay. But yeah, they're not getting in the cars. I haven't heard anything like that. It's very interesting. driving to California, there's billboards everywhere, and having kids, it's like me and the wife were talking like, we're probably going to have this conversation at some point with them in regards to this, because it's not like when I was a kid, it's like, we got used to the commercial with the frying egg, or the guy with the bad Jerry curl. Where'd you learn this? I learned it from watching you, Dad. I learned it from watching you.
And I thought that guy was the biggest dirtbag.
Yeah, of course you did. He probably never got another acting gig because people thought he was like this piece of shit dad, this like deadbeat dad that was like doing drugs in front of his son. But where we live today, it's like they're going to know about it. With social media, they're going to know about it. So instead of sheltering them from it, like explain it and treat them like adults, and maybe we're going to end up with a better situation. I've got a 19-year-old, about to be 20-year-old daughter. I've got 2 boys. It's like we're in that era of things that, need to be up front versus them wanting to sneak around and figure stuff out, because, there's always that story. Almost every high school, somebody knew somebody that died, whether it was a car accident from drinking or, being wilding out, and nobody kind of corralling that in. And I'm not suggesting you allow your kids to drink at home and stuff like that, but it's like knowing where they're at, being confident in their ability to say yes or no, and being confident that they can trust you to call you and say, Dad, I need you to come get me. Mom, I need you to come get me.
You don't want to push them to the point that they completely abandon you.
Yep.
And that's a fine line to toe. I've lived the blissful ignorance of being dual income, no kids. So we live a little bit of a different life than some of our
Absolutely, but friends and family that absolutely.
So I did want to talk about gambling, and I do want to talk about the Cardinals. As far as the wagers, now how much has changed? Because you used to be able to go up to Nevada, and you used to be able to go on like Bovada.com and things like that. What has changed with the recent legislation? What are we not prohibited from doing in this day and age?
Bovada is still nice in the sense of, for you that don't like this, I'm sure the FCC is not going to like this. The IRS is not going to like this. But Bovada, you can deposit from your account, and when you win, they pay it back to you in Bitcoin. There's no transaction in the sense of you having to pay taxes if you have a big win. Where here, you're playing BetMGM, you're playing DraftKings, you're playing FanDuel, you're playing Wynn, you're playing Barstool, whatever one you're on. Anything over $600 in a victory, they're sending that to the IRS. There's a little tax thing that you can click on that's going to tell that. Anything under $600, they're not going to report, but you should report any winnings over $600 total.
Oh, just like I reported all
just
my
like
tips
everything,
when I was
100%, just like Vegas and all of those things. So it's or tips, deliver pizza or whatever. So it's like one of those things like you're supposed to, but they're not going to. So I've been making sure for me that my bets fall. That if I'm going to win, if I'm placing something like that it's just under the $600 mark. It's just smart gambling. People do it in Vegas all the time. They play something to where, hey, I'm not going to win over $1,200. It's like $1,095. Because they want that ability of not having to pay the IRS. They shouldn't have their hands in your winnings. That's for a whole other conversation that will, go on forever. But what's nice about it is that
just assume they not have any hands at all.
Agreed. But that's for another station that's probably on Central City. I'm sure we can get on another show and talk about that at length.
We have no lanes here. This is the only sports show at centralcityradio.com at the moment.
Okay, cool.
I mean, we're wide open for expansion here, obviously. But if we need to, we had Kerry Lake sitting in that chair.
Nice.
Running for
governor.
Run for governor as a Republican, former news anchor here.
I remember her.
On the Fox affiliate. So, we don't necessarily lean in either direction, but we're not limited to the scope of literally anything.
Just sports. So, with the gambling situation, and then, of course, they built all of these indoor casinos because Vegas isn't going to lose out here, ladies and gentlemen. Vegas is not going to lose out here. So they're all partnered with somebody. Caesars, obviously, that's coming out of Vegas. The only one that's not really, you got your FanDuel and your DraftKings. They're not tied to a casino, but they're the only ones. Everybody else is
illegal here, where they were legal.
Yeah, you couldn't do it until Thursday, September 9th was the first time you could bet like that. Now, I love Bovada. I still will use Bovada at times, especially if I think I've got like this grand parlay it's going to pay a bunch of money that I'm like them key on. I probably would do it through that, just so the fact that you don't have to necessarily pay those taxes. You can bet with anything, $1. There's a bunch of free bets out there. They make it easy.
We got to get you in the door.
It's going to be absolutely.
Hey, girl, you want some candy?
Absolutely, because they get you back. They're like, hey, we'll even give you a risk-free bet. What we're going to do today is you put $10 up. If you lose, we'll give it back to you in bonus money. It's just like Vegas. Hey, that's why they have the big chandeliers. That's why the lights are on. That's why the buildings are so big, because they're going to get your money at the end of the day. It's just, what is it? You're going to get got. just don't get God as much as you can get them, type thing. It's, when you can walk away up a little bit, or if you're doing it for fun. My brother bets maybe $5, makes like $5 $1 bets. But guess what? He's cashed out a couple of $80 winners off of that, just because he's like, oh, that's good. I'll take that. The fact that they let you, it's going to make baseball more interesting here. I think people will pay more attention to the Diamondbacks because of gambling. I think,
especially if you have the mobile post right at the game. I did not know that. We right before the pandemic, March 1st, 2020, we went to Las Vegas Golden Knights game, which is awesome. Like for my little brother from Cleveland, it was his first hockey experience, was seeing the Golden Knights.
That would be very fun.
Standing room only seats, so we didn't get to see the pageantry of the pregame, except
in the halftime and all that.
Video board, but what an electric atmosphere for a random Sunday night game in February is what it was, or it was February 29th, March 1st, something like that, and it was just extraordinary. And then I went to buy a fitted Golden Knights hat, and then I started feeling the polygamy thing.
Oh no, not at all.
So I actually didn't buy the hat, but I saw what it primarily was I described it as like an OTB.
Yeah, it was exactly what it is.
Placed the betting window.
Yep.
It was the betting window right at the game, so I could have bet on goals scored in the third period at the second intermission.
Yep, and that makes it fun, especially for the casual fan. Like, I think what's going to drive people to go to the Diamondbacks is the beautiful, I think it's Caesars Sportsbook that's being built inside the Diamondbacks. And I'm guessing, just kind of thinking of where it's at, and it might already be in. I haven't been to a Diamondbacks game in a while. No real reason to go, but to go see that. The Suns are going to have the FanDuel, what is it, the Footprint Arena? I want to make sure I get it right. The Footprint Center. They have a big FanDuel Sportsbook in it. That's like a lounge. It's a bar, but it's a lounge, and there's ticket windows, and you can go do all this. Within 5 years, you're going to be able to bet from your seat live on the next pitch. I mean, that's where we're going.
And I've heard that the true Taj Mahal of all these mobile sites is going to be up at TPC. They're going to have a sportsbook up there Super Bowl weekend when the Phoenix Open is there. Yeah, are
you kidding me? But that's so they can also drive traffic year round. Because now people will go there to eat, drink, have instead of going to the Keg or going, to downtown or going to your favorite spot, hey, let's go there because I can make a bet on whatever's going on right now. And make it fun. Hey, hon, let's put a bet on it. You know what I mean? So when you get those things like getting your significant other, now I know your wife is she enjoys sports.
Yes.
She's a big sports fanatic. So shout out to you guys for having that. But for the common fan or those that don't, it makes the game or what you're watching a little bit more interesting, because I could care less about the Jets playing Jacksonville on a Sunday afternoon. I could care less about the Texas Rangers playing the Marlins. I could care less. But if you're telling me I can put together a little $5 parlay that might win me $100 if I just basically put the combination right of how many hits or how many runs or whatever, that's going to draw me to want to watch it. So it's better for all the sports. And the first thing that pops up is if you have a gambling problem, like they're pushing it. It's just like cigarettes. They put that big label on it, like, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, but here we're going to sell it to you anyways. As soon as you log into those things, gambling problem, call, da-da-da-da, go to this.
If you have an addictive personality, don't try heroin. Don't try crystal meth.
Right, yeah.
Gamble.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and I do think, just because of that Jack Casino that went in at the department store in the Terminal Tower in Cleveland, I've seen that ruin lives of people I've grown up with, because it was just 24 hours of access to indulgence in something that
they're not used to,
not good at,
or not comfortable with. Yeah, exactly. Like when you go to Vegas, you hear people lose their ass, of course, but like you say, if you're addictive personality, and you have in your backyard, that just makes it way too tough. They don't have the ability to say, I'm not going to go there. Like, we have so many casinos here now. I think the last time I was in a casino here was when we took my mother-in-law, and that might have been like 6 or 7 months ago. We went up there for a day to Talking Stick. I played a little bit of roulette because that's the game I like to play, and I think I lost like $40, and I was like, I'm out. Like, I can't take it, because to me, $40 still means something. It's a tank of gas. Well, not these days. It's half a tank of gas. It's, dinner for the fam. It's whatever it might be. But if I correlate things like that, well, I don't like to lose. Now, the sports gambling thing makes it hard because it's on your phone. And it's right there. It's like, boom, here you go. But you can bet with as little as like 25 cents. So it's like, if you want to do it because you like the thrill of gambling, you can do it with like minimal money. But if you have that urge of, I want to win big, I want to be that person that's on the Instagram that's got like that, like, I don't know if you saw last night, there was a guy in Michigan who placed a 13-leg parlay, money lines, $25 bet to win $776,000. They were offering him a cash out of $116,000 before last night's game. He had the Lions to win. I hope he took the cash out. I haven't gotten any update. But it's like they're offering you a cash out, and you're betting on the Lions to win. Like, that's why the bet was so big, and the fact that everything else hit. Take your blessings and cash out, bro.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? But he's going to pay a lot of taxes on that because he bet through, I think that was BetMGM. So it's like all this betting is legal now, but there's taxes. Just like you said, the hippie lettuce is legal now, but there's taxes. And it's so much on both sides.
In addition to liking sports, my wife lives to take days off work to watch The Price is Right. And we see the piece of shit cars that they're putting out there. And my wife's just bitching. She's like, who the fuck wants a Chevy Spark?
Nobody does.
And and then they have like trips to Scottsdale, which are from LA. If you live in Maine and you're out in LA for The Price is Right. And anyway, I've just said cash value. It's always cash value.
It's always cash value.
Don't think of anything on these shows. Don't think of these prizes as anything other than cash value, because very few people that want to be game show contestants are wealthy enough to cover the taxes to take.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I got that car. It's $27,000. Okay, you owe us $5,000 right now. Well, I can't do that. Well, we'll give you $7,000. Well, I could have cashed out on the show for the real dollar amount. Instead, I'm getting hosed on the back end. It absolutely happens.
That's why there's a $10,000 cap on like Chopped and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's because they're trying to do the best that they can. Because $10,000 is a big number for the
absolutely.
And I think that they're just trying to give as much money as they can away, and that's why it's always $10,000.
Yep.
You'll rarely see it be more than $10,000. Price is Right. You can win $25,000 plus whatever you win in the preliminary rounds. You're welcome, Jen. Price is Right segment. Cardinals, let's keep it in the tune of gambling. What's the numbers look like on Jacksonville, Arizona?
I want to say it was plus. Cardinals were 7.5-point favorite as of yesterday. I don't know if that number is going to grow.
Do you believe in them?
It might. No. Wow, that was easy to say. I still think they're half fugazi. Honestly, I think, look, the Vikings got beat by Cincinnati. They came in here and gave the Cardinals everything they could, and the Cardinals tried to give that game away. Game management, clock management, ball management. Kyler Murray just deciding just to, at times, just like he looked like such an elite quarterback, and then he makes that player like, you can't do that if you want to be elite. You can't do that. That's what's going to separate you from making the playoffs or not, because this division is so strong. What's tough.
Wrong with Minnesota right now?
Honestly, well, I can't say it's the offense.
They've lost 2 close games.
I can't say it's the offense in the sense that, look what Kurt did. The Cardinals defense, they're not slouches. They have hungry guys that are premier players that premier.
Shut down Derrick Henry.
And Cook went off on them. 22 carries, $131, something like that. Now, they kept him out of the end zone. I think they were overhyped for the game. I think Minnesota's problem might be, and my brother-in-law Patrick's going to hate me saying this, but it might be Mike Zimmer. I think his play style, his identity for that team doesn't fit that team, and they've never taken on the identity of their coach. And bringing in Kirk Cousins didn't help that. They didn't bring in a dog. And I like Kirk Cousins to an extent, but they didn't bring in a dog. I think, and I respect their GM and their draft picks. They always draft well. They put together solid teams, but I just don't think that team buys into whatever is going on in the background, because they are too good to be this bad, to be this lackluster, to have lost Week 17 last year when you could have made the playoffs with no business losing that game in Chicago to sneak in. That said a lot. And I think that with the whole COVID situation, with him being very upset, they had a lot. They were one of the teams that had a lot of people that were unvaccinated, and everybody's decision is their own. But when your coach takes that stance, same thing in Washington. Ron Rivera took that stance. It's like, well, you've now alienated 50% of your team with the way that you feel, and they probably weren't already buying into you to begin with. They love you as a person. I know you're a great person, but I think maybe your coaching and philosophy style isn't working in Minnesota, and they've given him 5 years now. I feel like it's been about 5 years Zimmer's been there.
Well,
it might be time.
That's the course for Minnesota. You're going back to Green, Tice, Frazier, Childress.
They give him chances. They give him time. Cleveland never did that. The fact that we're doing that now, and I don't want to get on them, but they've done that. At least I will say the stability of Minnesota is they've given them chances to be good and to build your identity. They've never taken it with them.
The Bears barely beat the Bungles. over the weekend. They're the Browns' next opponent. It's a home game. We're going to see Justin Fields, perhaps.
Perhaps. Andy Dalton hasn't ruled out that he's not playing. They said it wasn't a bone-on-bone.
He never played well in Cleveland.
I would love it if Andy Dalton was the quarterback for the Bears. If I'm the Browns, I'm hoping Andy Dalton plays. Not that you can't get after Justin Fields. He's a dynamic athlete, though, and mobile quarterbacks give us fits. Obviously, Lamar. I mean, look what Tyrod Taylor did through the first half of last week's game. He was dicing up our defense with very simple stuff. Very simple stuff. Joe Woods needs to get his act together. That's for another conversation. But watching the Bears, and I've got a lot of family that are Bears fans because of my wife's side, so shout out to everybody that are Bears fans. Y'all are going to lose on Sunday. But their defense looks for real. I mean, I think they're going to get after Baker a little bit. We have to run the ball. We just have to be consistent. We have the best offensive line at running the ball. They're maniacs on that line. They got to run the ball. Keep Chicago off the field. They don't have enough talent to beat us, but neither did Houston, and they made it a game. I figured they wouldn't cover, but they made it a game. Baker took unnecessary shots. I think it was very interesting to see how they played. They looked like they were hungover. The Browns defense looked like they were hungover. They looked like they were lackluster, lackadaisical, letting Houston hang around, and maybe it's because they knew they were going to win, and that you can't have. You can't have that.
Was the Chiefs game still in their heads?
Maybe, because I mean I can understand. Being a professional, I know they got to be able to compartmentalize, but to come off of knowing you guys should have beat the Chiefs in KC, and then the noise of the national media, oh, look what Baker did, his last throw of the game.
Brooks said you can't pay him $40 million because he didn't put together a fourth quarter drive against the Chiefs in September.
And that's why Bucky Brooks is like one of us, just better and on TV versus being in the scouting department and being with an NFL team still, because that's a ridiculous take. I'm sorry, but he's the best quarterback the Browns have had since Bernie Kosar, and he's the most talented since Otto Graham. I can't speak for Otto, but he was a talented bro. He was talented if he played basketball too. He was an immense athlete. Baker is our future. If people think Deshaun Watson, regardless of what's going on with him, is a franchise quarterback, if people believe Kyler Murray, and a lot of people don't, but if Kyler Murray's a franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert, I'm sorry, but the I almost call him San Diego, the Los Angeles kid, the Sunshine Kid, he's a immense talent. And boy, he seems like he's got his head on his shoulders. But hey, let's not crown him yet, folks. Hey, he's played, 18 NFL games? Like, he looks the part, but there's a lot of guys that look the part and fall apart.
Didn't they sabotage Taylor to get him on the field?
I mean, that very well could have been. They punctured his lung. And then, dude, Tyrod Taylor's got the worst luck. And then he comes into Cleveland, pulls his hamstring. He cannot catch a break. He can't catch a break. I feel bad. I don't know what he did, but, he better get right with whatever karma got. He pissed off because that dude cannot catch a break.
At one point, I believe that he would actually win the job from Joe Flacco there in Baltimore.
He should have.
It just never came to be.
He should have. Buffalo moved on from him after he got them to the playoffs. He got them to the playoffs for the first time in 19 years since Jim Kelly. And they're like, nah, dog, you got now. Granted, ended up being the right move for them because they got Josh Allen. They knew what they were going to do, which is who I wanted. I didn't want Baker. I wanted Josh Allen. I thought big, strong, can throw the ball in the type of weather. Where'd he go? Basically our cousins, the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Because they are basically, Buffalo is Cleveland minus the lake. And they've even got Niagara Falls. I mean,
they do. I have a soft spot for Buffalo.
Me too.
I don't have that same soft spot for Pittsburgh, who were the lone holdouts in the approval of the original Browns.
Of course.
Baltimore. So we don't expect the Cardinals to be upset, though. It would be such Arizona.
I can't see them losing this game. There's no way they lose this game.
It's got written all over it, though, because you've got all of these NFC West games coming up. Nobody, is really falling by the wayside in the division.
They have to keep pace. They have to keep pace. Like this game, what's nice for them is the Rams are hosting Tampa Bay. So they have a good chance of the Rams taking an L. You got Seattle traveling after an emotional loss to the Tennessee Titans, who Arizona embarrassed at home, going to Minnesota, coming off of another emotional loss. So I think that game's going to be low scoring. Seattle will probably get that victory, but that feels like a Seattle loss in my opinion. Of Minnesota will get right. It's going to be low scoring. It's in Minnesota. They have to travel from that. Arizona knows, Cliff Kingsbury knows, Keim knows they cannot lose traction in this division. They have to win as many games as possible that are out of their conference because they're going to go 3-3 in the conference. They're going to. I expect them to split down the board if they're lucky.
All four of them?
I mean, you're gonna. You telling me they're not sweeping San Francisco?
The
Cardinals.
3-3.
Yeah, they're not going to sweep. They're not sweeping San Francisco. They're not sweeping the Rams. They're not sweeping Seattle. I mean, granted, I think they swept Seattle last year, to be honest. But that's an anomaly. That doesn't happen. Yeah, exactly. So they're not. I don't see that happening. Same thing with like the AFC North. The Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens. They have to keep pace with one another, so they can't afford to lose these out-of-pocket games like the Raiders game, like the Kansas City game for both. So it kind of put them in that position of they're still on that same, even though they've all lost, are on that same pace. The Cardinals cannot afford to lose this game. You can afford to win by 1. You can afford to not cover. Who cares?
That's what the Browns did last year. They beat them by 1.
Yep, just beat them.
And then they lost to the fucking Jets. So I mean,
with no receivers, and they decided not to run the ball. I mean, that was getting too cute.
Well, the NFL didn't give the Browns the same concessions that they gave Baltimore around Thanksgiving.
And why would they? Because they have their COVID situation under control. Y'all did not. Okay, that's just like them telling me right now that the Emmys on Sunday was they didn't have to wear masks because it was the event was exempt from the LA County mandate and that the event was COVID safe. How do you make an event COVID safe? Because if we knew how to do that, we'd make all events COVID safe.
Oh, bring in the forklift. We got to move the goalpost again.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Well, why are all the people working in the back still wearing masks then? If it's a COVID safe, it doesn't make any sense. So it's one of those things like this shouldn't happen. But they also are traveling to Duval County. This Cardinals game is in Jacksonville. It's going to be hot and buggy. You know what I mean? It does have the sense of a trap game, but I guess this will tell you. If they win this game, I will believe in them a little bit more because they have every right. They should win this game. You cannot go down there and come back with an L. If you do, you're the team that's out. You're already not going to make the playoffs. We already know this because if you lose to Jacksonville on the road, you sure as shit ain't beating San Francisco at home. You're not beating the 12th man, and you're not taking out Matt Stafford, which I think could be MVP.
Yeah,
this is not going to happen.
A lot of casual fans out there undersell Matt Stafford because he played with that lion stench for so
absolutely
long. And Jared Goff has picked it up and
he wiped it all over himself last night. Played good for 2.5 quarters.
So I went to a wedding on Saturday night. I got to watch the Buckeyes as I got ready for it, and I watched the Sun Devils stumble and bumble and commit penalties as they've done since Herm Edwards got there.
And they looked great in the first quarter. Defense looked stout, line held up. That touchdown they had with like 11 minutes in the first quarter to take the lead or whatever, he walked right in. Like they looked great. They were getting after BYU's quarterback, and then all of a sudden they all forgot that we're supposed to be a disciplined football team and we're playing like it's AAU. It was, and like you said, with it being a Herm Edwards thing, is that, and let me ask you this, is that because he's out of touch and he's just pushing the same narrative, or is his coach is just not holding people accountable?
Well, is he hiring coaches on credential or popularity and clout?
The latter.
That's what I think too.
The latter.
And I do think that because Brian Billick's such a turd, that I give Marvin Lewis a lot of credit for that Super Bowl that they won with Trent Dilfer as their quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
I give Marvin Lewis complete credit for that, but running a team, he was unable to get them over a certain threshold in Cincinnati, and he had plenty of opportunities. So I'm not oversold on him. I'm not sold on Pierce. These guys are, and they like Pierce because he's one of them.
Yep. And that goes a long way.
Speaking of them, you saw they lost to NAU.
Dude, I love that U of A lost to NAU. I don't have a dog in the fight. I have more friends that are ASU.
No stakes.
I have a lot of friends that are more.
I enjoy going to Sun Devils games. And
yes. How I put it in there. So I guess I would, if you had to ask, I would root more for ASU than U of A. Mm-hmm. I am not an either or. I could care less in that regard. We live up here. I've got more of a Sun Devil fever, I guess you'd call it. I've always enjoyed going to their games. It's a fun atmosphere, even if they don't win. But watching NAU, the pride and joy of Northern Arizona, the Lumberjacks, come down and get a victory against U of A is phenomenal. Now, BYU, ASU, BYU's a good football team.
They beat Utah.
They're a good football team. They are a disciplined football team. They're always a disciplined football team. And I think that fans here were, it's probably 65-35. There's a lot of elation that BYU won because there's a huge LDS community in Arizona that, hey, it's BYU. It's just like in Ohio. We have a ton, everybody's an Ohio State fan. There's a lot of Catholics that are Notre Dame fans. So it's like, God forbid they play each other. And if they do, hey, I'd like to see Ohio State win, but, hey, we're pulling for Jesus. So I think BYU very similar in that fashion of, hey, we want to see them beat ASU. When I was just in Vegas over opening day weekend, there were so many BYU fans there because I think they were playing.
They were playing U of A?
Yeah.
At the Roomba.
Yeah. So it was like, I was there. I was like, why are there all these BYU fans in Vegas? This is weird. And you can tell who's never been to Vegas before. That was fun to watch. That was fun to watch. I was like, they're there with their 10-year-old kids, just like, hey, we got to keep their eyes closed. We can't let them see that people make money being dressed as Pokemon on the street.
I think that they were up there one year for the Vegas Bowl, and this is 10, 15 years ago. And it was, so I have seen them, and they, you want to talk about a fish out of water is the Brigham Young family.
Oh my goodness.
Walking
the strip. It was very interesting, and they were definitely not out at night. It was like, hey, we got to get hunkered down in whatever room before it goes dark, like vampires.
They didn't want to have to take any flyers or business cards, and they're too rude to turn them down, or they're too polite to turn them down.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. The little double tap, bop, bop, with these cards. I was like, oh no, we can't have that.
Dude, this was a blast. James Out West. The show is on Monday night. What time on 10?
7 p.m. 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. KDUS 1060 AM on Phoenix. It's on 1060 the radio. If you are fancy and have HD radio, it's 100.7.1. So we are on FM as well, ladies and gentlemen. Website jamesoutwest.com. We do podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. We got merch, all that stupid stuff.
All right, on. Check it out. There's a website.
Yeah, jamesoutwest.com.
Right on. And
make it easy.
This is it for us here from CentralCityRadio.com studios. This has been Jeff Rich live from Phoenix, and that was James Out West.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Hey, man, that was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, well.